So right now it's my pleasure to welcome a new guest to the show. She goes by Kimberly, and she's a nerd like me. She's a PhD candidate kind of nerd, and her area of interest is seismology. So Kim, how did you get interested in seismology? Oh, welcome to the barbecue. Sorry about that.
Actually, I got interested in it when I was a child, and I went on a vacation, and I went and saw my very first volcano, and digging for diamonds, actually, in Arkansas.
Wow.
And I've gone back ever since. I take my kids there.
In seismology, tell us a little bit about seismology, because I know seismology for earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that, but it has to be linked to geology as well. So geology is part of the discipline?
Yes. Geology, planetary tectonics, seismology, it all works with the ground movement, earthquakes, volcanoes, fault lines, fault zones, subduction zones. Everything interacts. Everything's interconnected.
Interesting. Well, I think so. I think that on every level. So that's really kind of fascinating. And so you just jumped into that, and you've been studying it for a long time?
Yes.
And then there's something that went on in Harney County when you were hearing about the situation in Harney County. How'd that light up for you? What made you pay attention?
I had been doing research in Lakeview, Oregon for a bunch of cluster of earthquakes that had been happening in the later part of December of 2015. And when I was researching the dormant volcanoes that were nearby and within a couple of 100 miles, I found the diamond crater. And that's when I started really paying attention to it, because that is 50.2 miles away from Burns, Oregon. It's to the south. And it would have been about 20 miles to the south of the refuge. And I actually found a geothermal pool that is located either on that refuge or right close nearby.
Now you say geothermal pool?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a
balneological feature?
Yes. And
you didn't think you knew that word, did you?
Yeah. No, not a lot of people do.
Told you I'm a nerd.
Basically, I found this geothermal pool, and I found this probably around the 2nd of January, and I started looking into it for a few days, and then it took me about 20 days to get up the nerve to contact that online feed, that live 24-hour feed hotline thing. Mm-hmm. And I tried to get on there, and they wouldn't listen to me. But I wish they had us, because what I had to say and what I had to share might be of importance now, or so I'm finding out. I've been sharing it with a gentleman the last 3 days, and I've been talking to different people, explaining to them, hey, I found out this information about old mining claims and old diamond claims and this, that, and whatever. And we've been talking, and now my information is just now starting to get out there.
Okay, so tell me, what's the big deal? If it's 20 miles away, what are you saying? How is this important to Ammon Bundy?
A volcano naturally produces kimberlite, which produces diamonds, and that was my first firework that went off in my head. Was these people are getting their land stolen for diamonds or minerals, or there's something there that the federal government wants and that they want control of. And that was like my first clue. I just, lights went off, and I was like, okay, I've got to look into this. I found some old diamond claims. I found everything from Harney County. I found old geological reports from the 1930s all the way up to the 50s, 60s, 70s. And lights just started going off in my head. Okay, diamonds, I know diamonds are produced by volcanoes. What else is mineralized produced by volcanoes? And then I started going down the list, and I'm like, okay, well, there's something there, mineral that they want. There's some mineral there that they want.
Well, we know about the uranium.
Yes, there's actually a lot of rhyolite there, which you can get uranium from that. I just found some reports today, which I haven't had a chance to go through them because whenever I got told that I was dumb and I didn't basically know what I was talking about back in January, I just dropped it. I didn't even bother looking into these claims any further myself. I'm like, well, if they're not interested in it, then why am I going to waste my time being interested in it?
So so wait a minute, hold on. Let me get this right. So when you called into the live feed, that was Pete Santilli's live feed, right?
Yes. I had sent it to a gentleman by the name of Scott Schaller, something like that. And what had happened with him, and I still think, I don't know, I mean, that guy, there was something wrong with that guy. But when I sent it to him, I sent it to his email, and I never got a reply back. And then I looked back over to the live feed that was going on YouTube. And he was there, and he was like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's stupid. She was just blowing smoke up her rears, whatever. And I'm like, he didn't even look at the information that I sent him. He didn't even have enough time.
Wow.
And then that's when I felt like, okay, well, they know what they're doing. And I sent him one last email, actually. And the email that I sent him said, you can choose to believe me or not, poke fun of me, whatever, but that lake, that whole area sits on a dormant volcano. I said, this pretty, almost perfectly rounded pond lake wasn't man-made. It looks a lot like the ones out at Yellowstone. Here you can compare the pictures to see what you think. The first one is where you all are camped out at, and the second one is Yellowstone. That pretty blue clear water isn't from the tropics, but you all know what you're talking about. It couldn't possibly be geological or volcanic.
Well, did you have a reason? What was your take on why they were dissing you?
I thought that he was maybe like law enforcement, like stuck there. I mean, I didn't know. And after that, I just kind of dropped it and was like, okay, I'm out of it. I don't want any, I don't want any more. I don't want a part of this anymore, basically. And I got out of it. I just thought that maybe he was like an implant from law enforcement or something. I had no clue.
Yeah, there's lots of plants in this whole thing, and confidential informants and just compromised people. It has been, you need, just like the Bundy Ranch, you need a scorecard to tell who's who.
I just tried to stay out of it. And then a couple of days ago, I think Laz, he was posting some stuff up online, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I've been saying this for like almost 6 months, I mean, I said this back in January, so there must be something true. So I asked someone for who the guy was that makes all the videos, and she's like, oh, that's this person, add him. And so I did. And so he and I started sending him stuff immediately. We started talking on the phone, and I'm like, I tried.
What's interesting about this to me, Kim, is that Laz has been really dissed by Mike Arnold as well, who's no longer Hammonds' attorney, but they don't want any information from Laz. And now, okay, he's a fabulous researcher. He doesn't write affidavits too well, but that's not what he does. I mean, he's a researcher. And your research concurs with his?
Yes. And I've been bringing stuff to the table that he didn't even know about.
Such as?
I've been bringing stuff to him that he didn't even know about. I've been, articles, different stuff that he's been doing. I've been bringing maps and different stuff that he didn't even know about to him. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Look at this. I just found this. This applies. And we're like going over it, and I have him speechless. And he's like, wow. He was like, we did not know this.
Okay, so tell me how you're just confirming, if I'm hearing you right, that there's an agenda behind taking all these ranches away from the ranchers, all the mining away from the miners and the forestry stuff. It's all because they want what's under the ground.
Yes.
In the ground.
Absolutely. Not a doubt in my mind.
Been a conspiracy theorist for a long time?
Actually, no. Actually, no, I haven't. I had an accident some years back, and I didn't even put that together until 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I watched the government take down information about Ebola whenever they were bringing those Ebola patients over to America to be treated. I watched them take down Ebola information within a matter of minutes. And that's when I was like, oh my God, conspiracies are real. It was like, oh my God, it was that realization that I had 2 years ago.
How'd your accident happen?
I was in a really bad car accident. I nearly died, and I spent the year later pretty much just learning how to do everything all over again. I took some time off school. I took some time off on life and stuff and tried to get better. The only thing is that I'm nervous. The government's not my favorite person.
So do you think, are you saying, now I want to be clear here because I don't want to put this out. Are you saying that you think your accident was by design?
Yeah, I do.
What made you, now I don't want you to say anything that puts you in jeopardy, but can you tell us why you think that?
The police report.
Which said?
There were some things in the police report that had been mentioned. It made me think about it a little bit harder and what I was working on at that time and where I was working at that time.
Okay.
And then I've talked to some other people, and they all agree that it was a warning for me.
Wow. Well, I admire your courage and bravery to come forth now and be giving information to Laz and being involved in this and be willing to be on a radio show.
I wasn't so willing at first. Laz and I had to talk about 3 days before that. I told him, I said, can I just be the nerd behind the computer screen that gives you all the information and you just go with it? Because in all honesty, going on the radio makes me nervous. I'm nervous now, as you can hear it in my voice, whereas...
Oh, hey, it's just a couple nerds having a conversation. You can relax. It's all good.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody's listening.
It still scares me. I've done 2 other interviews, actually. This isn't my first, and those 2 went... The second one went a lot better than the first one. The first one, all you can hear me saying is, I'm so scared pretty much the whole time.
Well, they're tracking everything. I mean, I know that's no consolation to you. It's so corrupt right now. Do we really need any more information on the corruption? Do they need to have any more motive? I mean, they've got plenty of motive just with the uranium.
Well, that's not all. Last night I was going through some of this evidence that I found, and did you know in 2014, a little town, it's in Grant County, Oregon, Grant County, the county up north from...
right, where John Day is, where Glenn Palmer's the sheriff.
Yes. Dayville, Oregon, they found diamonds up there 2 years ago. So it's kind of going hand in hand with my initial thoughts. Because I don't know, do you want me to explain to you how I came up with the diamond idea, basically?
Absolutely.
In Little Rock, Arkansas, there is a volcano there. It's actually active. Geologists say that it could erupt again in the future. Basically, this volcano, when it erupted, it pushed diamonds to the southwestern part of Arkansas, creating the Crater of Diamonds State Park and geological dig site, which you can take your family there. It's a big camping thing. You can pay a fee. You can go in there and dig for diamonds all day long. They got a little water park and stuff there. It's really nice. That was one of those fireworks that went off in my head. Like, okay, well...
Let me ask you a little bit more about that park. So when people find diamonds there, are they like gem grade that you could sell?
Actually, they have geologists on site that buy diamonds from people that find them. And they offer decent money, too. I mean, there was a 9 carat that was found, and somebody got like $43,000 from it uncut.
Oh, my gosh.
They offer really good prices for it, for what people find, depending on the carat weight and the clarity and everything. A 9 carat, somebody sold it for $43,000, and this was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay, now I want to know how diamonds come out of the ground.
Kimberlite. They're formed by kimberlite.
Okay, now explain what that is.
Kimberlite is a type of ore or mineral that it comes from volcanoes. It's a rare blue-tinged, coarse-grained, intrusive igneous rock, sometimes containing diamonds, which, And it's just a rock that is found near volcanoes. Kimberlite occurs when the Earth's crust is vertical structures known as kimberlite pipes.
Now, everybody's listening, and they're saying, wait a minute, I was told that diamonds were formed when carbon was put under intense pressure and heat. That's how diamonds are formed. And you're saying, no, it's this kimberlite.
Well, kimberlite and carbon dioxide.
Okay.
And other volatile components, basically. And that's kind of how they're formed.
Okay. So we're not being lied to about how diamonds are formed.
No.
You're just giving us a more technical breakdown of how that works. Okay, great. And so people can actually find diamonds, but diamonds are cut and polished and things like that for jewelry. Do they come out of the ground looking like a diamond?
No, you got to take them to a gemist or a jeweler.
Okay. So that 9-carat one, that sounds like a find.
Yeah, it was, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I walked away with $43,000-ish, so yeah.
I just go take the kids to the water park for the day and come home with $43,000. You know, that's people were pretty stunned, I'm sure, by that. So okay, so you say these volcanoes, when they erupt, they push these diamond deposits, this kimberlite, over some. I mean, it's like a vein that runs.
The vein of kimberlite would run on either side or front or back of the volcano, depending on how you're looking at it. I could show you a graph of it. It's easier to explain on a graph. But, like, basically, you'll see the volcanic tube and the volcano itself. And then off to, like, either side or north or south of the volcano, there will be, like, a little pocket. And in that pocket, it contains kimberlite, which could contain diamonds. And
okay, so these diamond claims or mining claims in Harney County, how long ago did you say those were filed?
I've got records from 1939 all the way up to the 1950s. Laz had some posted today on his page that we had found. It's Oregon Historical Mining Information. You can post it. That's everything for Harney County, and it's not just diamonds. It's gold, it's silver, it's nickel, it's uranium. I mean, we found pretty much everything in there.
Okay. Kind of interesting because in South Africa, the death knell for the Boer republics was when diamonds and gold were discovered in them, and
right.
that's what brought on the two Boer wars, and really decimated, the Boer population. So diamonds have and gold have not been beneficial to the people of the land.
Well, there's something else that I started studying back in January and even a few months ago is there was another land grab that happened in a place called Tonopah, Nevada. I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Yeah, Tonopah. You're saying it just right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What I found in Tonopah when I was on there and I was researching this other land grab, and what I found right there within the city, you got like that highway or the main street or whatever, and you got the BLM sitting right there. Right. And then around it to the north and to the south of it are volcanoes. They're dormant volcanoes. I'm sure they haven't erupted in thousands of years, but they're volcanoes, and you can tell that they're mining it. Now, I went online and I found these mining companies there. And there's one mining company, and they have like 6 different companies, but they all fall back to the one family-owned company or business-owned. I don't know who owns it. I don't know if it's corporate or family. But I can tell you just by how many people that they have working there that it's mining for gems. I knew that right off the bat because they only had 4 people working it.
Okay.
So they're mining, and what they mine out there is turquoise. And from what I was reading, they have some of the best turquoise deposits, and they found the best turquoise in the world. And they actually have some sort of a business deal with Tiffany's in New York, Tiffany Diamonds in New York. And that's who sells like a lot of their turquoise. And they also own their own businesses selling turquoise and silver and all the other things that they mine. It's just it's all set up into like 6 different businesses, but it all falls under the same people that own it.
That's interesting. And so
And
so who owned the land prior to the mining company?
I've only found I found three names connected to it, and that's the current owners. A man named John F. Hand had owned it beforehand, or owned the mining claims to it. And then another name came up, another last name of the Hartmans. I don't know if they're farmers. I don't know if they're ranchers. I don't know if they're corporate. I have no clue. I haven't done any research into this.
Okay.
Except for what I found. It really got me thinking about it, because then I went online and I found something else. Oh, goodness. I'm going to have to look it up on what I sent Laz, but not yet.
Okay, I'm going to take a minute and look for what I want to look for too, and show I want to get the map of Tonopah going here, because that's where the test site was in Tonopah. What they call the nuclear test site, where they tested nuclear weapons. Or I don't actually think they were nuclear. Yeah, it's still looks like an old mining town still. So let's find out how far away from Las Vegas that is. I know. I see the sign. I've never been. Okay, we'll just get them here. Okay, it's about 4 hours. 4 hours going north up the 95. So you go through a lot of there's even a place called Rhyolite, and that's right near Beatty, the Amargosa Valley, and then up through some place called Goldfield. Goldfield. Oh, Goldfield. That's interesting. And then to Tonopah. So Tonopah's on Route 6 that goes across, that would go into California. Interesting. So what did Laz have to say when you showed him all this? He was just doing cartwheels?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He was speechless. He was definitely speechless. I'm trying to find where I sent it, because I sent it to him and I sent it to someone else too.
Okay.
It was a call to action. It was from some of these miners that aren't corporate owned, that aren't incorporated at all. And basically they were stating on this call to action plea that I guess the BLM is trying to pass a law or something there to basically charge, instead of, I guess, the small miner's fee that they currently pay now.
Right. I mentioned that on the show. Here, I'll give you the it's RenoRockhounds.com, and
yes.
And it's
actually, yes, that was the website that I looked at.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the one I picked up on. Laz must have put it on a message to me. So there it is, everybody. You can look at it. It's Reno, like the city, rockhounds.com, and you'll see it. It's BLM proposes to eliminate small miners waiver.
Yes.
To put the small miners out of business. How do you feel about this?
I felt like it's going to be taking food off normal everyday people, people that aren't in a big corporation. It's going to be taking food off their table for their children and their family. I don't feel that it's right. I do feel that it's very wrong. But they're doing it, I think, for corporations, because back to the diamond thing now, just briefly, De Beers Diamonds makes $7.1 billion a year. And they, you know what I mean? That's a lot of money. For a big corporation, a big-time corporation.
Can you say that again?
De Beers Diamonds make $7.1 billion a year.
Wow, that's pretty profitable.
Now, that's in Africa. They've got big diamonds pretty much everywhere, blood diamonds. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is any type of gem in the western states could be, because that one company that I found that's down in Tonopah, they make, for one of their businesses alone, they average about $170,000 a year. Or so that's what's being reported. Mm-hmm. And you figure they've got 6 different businesses, and each business is pulling over $100,000 a year. They're making some serious cash.
Well, that's only half. That's like 6 of them. That's $600,000.
Right. But they're also incorporated, and they only have 4 employees.
Well, that's pretty profitable for 4 employees. I can see what you're saying there.
But
so this diamond thing, well, compared to the mines in South Africa, this isn't a big deal. Do you think there's a vein that's going to be like a De Beers type vein?
I think there could be. I mean, there's volcanoes all over the Pacific Northwest. And what I found interesting with every land grab that's been out there is the Great Basin. The Great Basin is the common denominator in every one of those land grabs that I've heard about. And I've asked other people about it. Hey, what are the chances, what are the chances that all these land grabs are happening within the Great Basin? And I've gotten 100%.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Somebody just texted me. I want to read you the text. The funny thing about Goldfield, Nevada, is they have a Freemason lodge there, and it's a very small town. I've seen that all over the West. I go to these small towns, and the biggest building there is the Masonic Lodge.
I have some friends of mine that are Masons, actually. I kind of lost track with them over the last few years, but they're down in Kentucky. Uh-huh. And, I've asked him, I'm like, hey, what goes on at your meetings? They can't tell us. It's all top secret, need-to-know basis. And their wives have to be, like, in a club with the other wives. And it's just, everything with them is such a secret.
But I've got you off track here. So, yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. What do you want us to know about this?
I just want people to be aware that, it could be the minerals, it could be diamonds, it could be gems that they're wanting to dig for. It could be, you guys may not think that it would bring in very much money for the average person, but for a big-time corporation, say like De Beers, it could mean big money for them. That could be what's going on in Oregon. Everybody's mentioned the Russias and the Chinese, and that we owe them so much money, and that was kind of one of my initial thoughts too. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, well, let me ask you what you know about this, because it's been all over the internet for a lot of years that the national parks have all been leased to the Chinese to pay off the national debt, not because of the beauty of the national parks from where the tourists enjoy it, but because of the mineral wealth.
National parks?
National parks.
National parks. The national parks are controlled by the United Nations biospheres. And the only reason I know this is because a couple months ago when I was digging around, I had read a book called Missing 411 by a retired detective, David Pilates. And he has this book about 411 people that's gone missing within state and national parks. They just vanished as if they were never there.
Yes.
I got into reading in this, and I started looking into it because, I'm a researcher. It's what I do. I research I research everybody's work just to make sure I'm talking, that I'm up to date, that I know what I'm talking about. And I started researching it, and I was like, wait a minute. And then the biospheres, the United Nations controls the majority of these lands due to the Human Heritage, blah, 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 treaty. And I got to thinking, I'm like, what are the chances, that the UN isn't taking these people and doing something with them, it would kind of make sense. I mean, and I'm not saying this to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but if you look around at the properties that they own, I have maps. I sent Laz maps and some articles about that, actually. I think that it's possible that there's people vanishing or being murdered. I think that the UN could be doing it. I mean, it's very plausible.
So tell us a little more about that book, about who vanished, and what was their reason.
The majority of them, the majority of them, from what I've read, are men. There have been 411 people that have vanished out of state and national parks. And to be honest, the author of the book, David Pilates, you would have to get in contact with him because obviously he's investigated this for years and years and years. He's very well. I just read the book, but
sure, that's okay. You're a researcher. When you take other people's, if you take other people's work, that's called plagiarism. But when you take lots of people's different work, that's called research. So go ahead. We'll call it research.
In my opinion, I think that the biospheres, the United Nations, I think that it could be a very good possibility that they're the ones that's kidnapping these 411 people, because some they found deceased, obviously. Some, they found children that have gone missing, and they found them miles from where they went missing at, barefoot with no shoes on, no clothes on. People just, strip out of their clothes for no reason at all, according to this detective and this author. And I mean, I've looked into some of this, and it's just really, really, really bizarre.
Yeah, I've read a little of what you're talking about. I haven't read a whole book on it, but it's all plausible. I mean, 411 people,
That's a lot.
and
That's one big serial killer. Like if that's what it is, you know what I
how
mean?
many different states are we talking here?
You're talking California, Washington, Oregon, Virginia, West Virginia. I mean, you're talking everywhere in the United States and even international. I believe he's coming out a book about international as well, because there's been a lot of people internationally that's gone missing. But the main book that was released that I read was just about the 411 people within the United States that have gone missing. But I believe he's actually going to be doing an international book as well.
Okay, so well, we know Europe's like a hotbed for pedophile rings and things like that, so that wouldn't surprise me. But so these people, when they disappear without a trace, some of them?
Yes, like according to Mr. Pilates, you can actually watch some of his videos on YouTube where he's actually done interviews about this. And he talks about, in one case, about they found clothes as if the people just melted out of their clothes and the clothes just fell on the ground where they stood. And that's what it looked like. And the National Park Service, apparently, there's like a big cover-up thing going on because he's filed information, like Freedom of Information Acts with them to get information, and they stonewall him. And even though he was reporting it as like news with the media clause and everything, they were trying to charge him like almost $2 million for these the for this paper trail, basically. And, I mean, it's really big. I mean, you would really have to get with him because I think that those missing people and the UN, because they're happening within these areas that are controlled by the United Nations, I think that they're connected.
It's interesting because there's that famous quote from this Harney County thing that says, oh, yeah, the reason we didn't go to John Day, we didn't go to Grant County is because it's not a UN zone. The UN's not welcome there. So the UN's hands are all over this. I said from the beginning it had to be International Monetary Fund or something. And so that doesn't surprise me at all to hear what you're telling me. What do people have to do with this information? Who needs it? Who needs it?
I want people to research it. I want people to, I'm only one person. I have current events that's going on too with stuff that I have to get out information-wise, research, other stuff that I do, from home and school. I want people to research it. I want them to research it themselves, look into these things for themselves. That way you don't have to go off of a word of one person. You know what I mean? Like, I
always say, don't believe anything I say. Go check it out for yourself.
Exactly.
So where do you want people to check? I mean, all the documents that you put on Lazaro's Facebook?
You know what? I can send them to you if you add me.
Okay, sure.
You can add me through his page, or he can give you the information to add me, and I'll just start sending you everything that I sent to him, and you can get it out there if you want.
Sure.
If you like.
Okay. Yeah, why not? That sounds great.
I'd given him some stuff yesterday. There was an article that I found today, actually, and this is what actually kind of made him speechless about it. It was an article that was published in 1979, and it was up in Burns, Harney County. And basically, one part of this article is talking about money figures, and I ended up posting it over on his page. But it says Robinson figures he could haul $12 to $15 million worth of stone off 1,200 to 1,500 acres of diamond craters in the next 25 years. Now, that money threw me off because this is back in 1979. I wonder how much the dollar value of that stone would be now.
So how much was the dollar figure?
12 to 15 million in 1979.
And how over what time period?
He said over 25 years.
Well, that's only $500,000 a year. Or is he saying that much per year?
Well, I don't know. He said over 25 years. But what I'm saying is that was a figure back in 1979, sure, over 25 years. But what would the value be today with today's currency?
Oh, it had to be at least double.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But that's still a lot of money. I mean, it's not in the billions like the beers, but
Did you ever look into, since you're not a conspiracy theorist per se, you don't follow all the stuff. Agenda 21, what does that mean to you?
It means we're in deep, you know what, muck.
Yeah, a lot of people feel like Harney County is going to be the first, major Agenda 21 places, and that it's just going to be martial law. And with what's going on there, someone said that there were more FBI coming into the area today.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I could see it happening here too in my area for presidential debates. That really scares me, martial law. I just want to literally go dig myself a hole in a bunker and just stay there and try to write it out as long as I can.
We're already really under martial law with just a very thin veneer of freedom over it, but it's a very, very thin veneer.
I'm just waiting for Yellowstone to blow, because once Yellowstone blows, the government's going to go underground and hide, because that's what they do best.
Oh, I'm amazed that you're mentioning the Yellowstone Supervolcano. I want to talk to a seismologist about that, and here you are. Because I used to have a geology friend, and we used to talk about Mount Rainier, that it wasn't a matter
Mount Rainier is a ticking time bomb.
Ticking time bomb, exactly. And that'll wipe out that entire side of Washington there.
Well, even more so now. In May, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, and Mount St. Helens started getting clusters of earthquakes. Actually, Mount St. Helens started getting theirs again in March, which I thought was weird because it would be interesting if it erupted within the same month, just like 36 years later. But it didn't, luckily. But anyways, basically, during the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens, geologists back then thought that it would cause Yellowstone to blow. But it didn't. And the difference, I think, now is because those plates, now they're locked together. The San Jacinto, the Hayward Fault, the Cascadia Subduction Zone, the San Andreas, they're all locked together now. They're all locked into place. They can't move anywhere. So if a large volcano, or not a large volcano, but if any one of those volcanoes, any one of those three had a violent eruption like Mount St. Helens did in 1980, it could cause a chain reaction and a chain event to happen. It could cause a large earthquake. Like the USGS is expecting a 9.0 any day now. In fact, I just posted it yesterday on my Facebook page, FEMA.gov. They're going to be in California is going to be doing it, Washington's going to be doing it, and Oregon's going to be doing it, along with FEMA, military, police, law enforcement, first responders from the 7th to the 11th of June here in a couple weeks, 10 days-ish, something like that.
That's coming right up.
They're going to be doing exercises for this 9.0 that they're expecting to have pretty much any day now.
We know a lot of these drills go live. Okay, so let's go back, just talk about Yellowstone Supervolcano, because that's always been said that when that goes, it creates nuclear winter.
Yes, volcanic winter. And the volcanic winter from a volcano the size of Yellowstone could last many years.
See, I don't think that's a bad way to go. I'm here in Las Vegas, and if you're asleep when it happens, you'll just smother, right? You'll just have oxygen deprivation and die in your sleep, right?
Not if you're breathing in ash particles. The ash particles from a supervolcano would be like breathing in glass.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that'd be painful.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go that way. That's kind of with every volcano, breathing in the ash. That's why they make you wear aspirator masks and different stuff when you're right there in it,
right,
or near it. But supervolcano would have basically. Let me explain to you about Yellowstone. This came out last year, I believe. They finally came out with it about the second magma chamber underneath Yellowstone. The first magma chamber was already a supervolcano. The second magma chamber has enough magma in it to fill the Grand Canyon 11 times. Now, I've done the math on the Grand Canyon, and the Grand Canyon's quite large. It can be 18 miles wide, 277 miles long, and up to 1.5 miles in depth. And if the second magma chamber in Yellowstone, if it's eruptible magma, it can fill that 11 times. That's a lot of magma. What people are finally figuring out now is that all these fault lines and subduction zones, they're all interconnected. 2 years ago, I knew that when Oklahoma started getting these clusters of earthquakes, I knew that they were going to continue. I knew that they were going to double in size, double in the amount of earthquakes that Oklahoma was going to get. Back then it was a theory. I set out this thesis and my theory last summer, and it was actually published by a survivalist. And then about 4 months ago, a geophysicist from Oklahoma came out and said, yeah, the Oklahoma earthquakes are connected to New Madrid, which is what my thesis was about last summer.
Right. That's okay. So you're batting 1,000 here.
You know, and on my page, I'll predict earthquakes. And, you know, I've talked to other scientists about this because nobody believes that you can predict an earthquake. Nobody, within the government science, that is, government science, people that work for the government are taught how to eat, think, sleep, and, you know.
Right. Well, when the Smithsonian is dumping boatloads of artifacts in the ocean, obviously they don't want us to know anything. Right.
Basically, the USGS, they were given a gag order about Yellowstone, and the gag order actually came from the Bush administration back in 2006 because they thought that it was going to erupt back then.
Right.
And then that gag order had been lifted for a few years, and then Obama reinstated it, I want to say in 2014 after that 4.8 hit. It was 2013 or 2014. I do believe it was 2014. And he reinstated it. So now, now that gag order, it's not just about Yellowstone. Everybody's kind of staying hush-hush kind of about everything. Like, they only want you to know what they want you to know, and you can't know anything else.
You know, whenever I read about Yellowstone, they can say it can be any day or it can still be, you know, hundreds of years from now. But those changes are amazing. The kind of heat and that the animals are suffering and.
You know, when the animals go, that should be your first clue.
Right.
When you start seeing thousands of animals running away from it, that should be your first clue. Hey, there's going to be an eruption. Yellowstone has really picked up in activity over the last couple of years. I've been monitoring it quite, like, every day. With that, what I'm finding is they've always said that before Yellowstone has an eruption, there's going to be a lot of earthquakes that are happening every single day. And I think we are in the beginning phase of that because there are earthquakes that are picking up. There is a study zone going on right now with students, geologists, seismologists, geophysicists, volcanists, volcanologists. There's a study going on right now, and within the study zone, you can see these earthquakes that are going off, and they have them marked, actually, with red ink. They're marking them with red ink. And you can go through there on the U of U seismology page, and you can count the earthquakes through the red marks. Now, what I find that they did actually something different. I guess they recently switched their systems. But 2 years ago, they were running 3 to 4 color ink on the page, which was showing you the gas emissions and the magma intrusion and the earthquakes and just different stuff, different
things that scientists would be interested in tracking. Okay.
Right. Well, now they've gone to 2 colors. Now they're just using red and blue. And from what I gather off of it, the red is to mark the earthquakes and the blue is the magma intrusion. And you can see a lot of that going on.
Okay.
And, and I think, and I'm not saying this definitively, but in my personal opinion, this is what I believe. I'm not telling you guys I'll be there or anything tomorrow, but I am thinking that Yellowstone will have an eruption here soon, probably this year. That is what I'm thinking right now with all of this action that I am seeing. There was an emergency FEMA meeting about this after the Ecuador quake, the 7.8 that hit last month, after the Japan quakes, because all these larger quakes are causing the tectonic plates to move and
okay,
shift.
Kim, I got some questions for you because we're almost out of time. We only got about 5 minutes. Okay, so let's have the Reader's Digest versions of this. When you said a little while ago that the government will go underground, I mean, you mean that literally all these places like Iron Mountain and places that they have these underground cities?
Yes, Ozarks.
Yep,
You've heard about the underground cities in Ozarks. Well, there was a video that I came across a couple months ago. It was it was actual news recording of this developer guy who bought some of these underground cities to put up a underground city for the rich people that can afford it, and they've all got motorhomes in there. They've got their own hospital. They've got doctors that are going to be there. They've got dentists that are going to be there. They have a damn golf course for crying out loud. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, these are for the luxury, top-notch people, and it's like hundreds of feet in the ground, and they're all covered in this underground city with highways and roads, and it's nuts.
You know, I think survival's overrated myself. I think the afterlife is going to be way better than what we've got here. So I don't have a big fear of, you know, I don't like dying. Getting there isn't so much fun, but death seems like a great time. That's real then. As a scientist, as a seismologist, as someone that understands geology, you've researched that, and that's not just conspiracy theorist nonsense?
No, it's not. It's not. You've got truckers making videos about these underground cities, dropping off goods, dropping off water and food and this, that, and whatever. And one trucker on one video that I seen posted on YouTube, he said that he's traveled 1,500 miles underneath these underground highways that they have. That's going to mean something.
Right.
And then, you know, and then that news article that I came across where it's an actual news article about a news station publishing a video about these underground bunkers that they've got underneath there for basically the rich and the famous. That has got to count for something.
There was an earthquake like around Virginia and Washington, D.C. a few years ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That's like really kind of weird. And again, you're talking about the plates are locked, and that's the problem with back east. If they do have a major earthquake, because everything's so old and it's locked, it'll be catastrophic.
Yeah, the same thing with the New Madrid. It'd be catastrophic. There's a map that's been going around. It said that it was dispersed by the U.S. Navy back in the 60s during one of those 2 weeks of drill things that they have once a year. And basically it shows from flooding from the coastal states, from flooding from the Arctic ice melting, and the different stuff. It's showing all the coastal states being completely underwater.
Right, that's the Scanlon maps.
Is that the one where it's got the water, the blue water, all the way up through the New Madrid, all the way up to like Great Lakes? Yes, right. That would be it. It's got that big hole out in the west, like Utah and Nevada is like pretty much gone. I think it's Utah, because it's that corner of Wyoming. It's like just one big round hole of water. The blue is water. That's what the map says.
Okay, last question. Do you think that they're trying to set off Yellowstone with HAARP?
I think that's a good possibility. Actually, I've been doing a study for the past year on earthquake patterns. And I actually think the earthquakes actually have a season, and I'll get into that another day, another time, if you want to have me back.
Love to.
I believe that it's a possibility, and nothing would surprise me what Obama would do. He's not my favorite person in the world.
They're all sociopaths.
Kim, yeah, they are.
Kim, thank you so much. You've been a fascinating guest, and we hope some of this will help our prisoners.